Hello there, and welcome back to the betting episode for WTA and ATP Madrid. Over the past 2 days, we've previewed the women's draw when the draw came out 2 days ago, and then the men's draw yesterday. Basically, had very little betting lines when we were recording the men's yesterday. There were two markets I put up. I think Sabalenka outright at plus 225 and Mensik and Rude both at plus 5,000 in the men's. So I have basically a full complement of markets here at this point, and we'll run through pretty briefly. I don't want to go over all of the preview of the draw and stuff again, but we'll just touch on initially just some quarter bets, make the final bets, and outrights, basically for both tournaments. I've found myself with a couple more bets on the men's side than the women's, and most of them are kind of long shot speculative stuff, whereas on the women's stuff it's a little bit more targeted at some of the shorter stuff and maybe bigger stakes for me anyway. The kind of men's one, I want to be finding ways, not necessarily to oppose Sinner, but if Sinner was to come up against a big hitter or a big server and go out early, to be on some of the other players, maybe on that side of the draw in section 2, and also at the bottom half of the draw at big prices. And also when you're targeting players, just to make sure that you're targeting them in the market that gives you the most value. So if someone is 4-1 to win their quarter but they're 20-1 to make the final, and that the implied semi-final price actually makes sense, and you're getting more value at the 20-1 maybe than you are at the 4-1 to win the quarter. So we'll just have a little look at that too. So yeah, let's jump straight in and start off with quarter one in the men's. I've no bet in quarter one in the men's. Sinner is minus 500. There are a few names who could trouble him and who could bother him. Hodar is there, Fonseca, Rublev, Dominar, Tommy Paul. There are plenty who could give him trouble, but I don't want to take him on necessarily in the quarter. I would rather take him on, have that entire quarter. Maybe somebody might take him out, and then you can take him on with somebody in the second quarter. So I'm going to skip the first quarter, no bet there. Men's second quarter, look, there are a few here, like big names in this section that we went through yesterday. It's headlined by Arthur Fils coming off a Barcelona title. Then you've got Shelton, Musetti. Weird ordering, to be honest, of some of the prices. Like Lehechka, Ignacio Buse is next. Sebastian Offner is next in the betting. Makes no sense. Anyway, we skip on there and we have Hubert Hurkacz, Valentin Vachereau, Matteo Berrettini. Big hitters on clay, big servers on clay. So the four names that I'm most interested in this section, and I'm not going to recommend four bets, I'm going to recommend two, but my immediate reaction is to take on Fils. I think there's a decent chance that Fils comes out here happy with his week in Barcelona, made a title run, will have eyes on Roland Garros primarily as a Frenchman and someone who's genuinely potentially a top three in the betting for Roland Garros, or should be in the top three of the betting for Roland Garros. So I'm going to take Fils on here. I think he gets beaten in this section. So the four names that I have are Shelton, Musetti, Hurkacz and Vachereau. And Shelton and Vachereau, I believe, are in the top of that section, and then the other two are in the bottom. Let me open the draw here. Yeah, Shelton is very top of that, and Vachereau is also in the top section, and then down in the bottom section you've got Musetti and Hubert Hurkacz. So the two that I'm actually going to go with, just at the prices, I talked myself out of Musetti, but I will take a punt on him in the outright as we get there a little bit later. He's 70-1 on FanDuel. That's a pretty easy auto click for me, and that's where the most value is on Musetti. So I'm going to skip him in the quarter market and hope that Hubert Hurkacz can take him at 14-1. I'm also going to have a go at Hurkacz later in the outright, but look, he looked pretty good in Monte Carlo. He's a player of huge, talent and ability. He's won pretty significant titles. He's won a Masters 1000, I'm pretty sure in saying. He's coming in here with a new coach, which is Gilles Servara, and I mentioned it yesterday in the pod, but that's Daniil Medvedev's long-term coach. Spent some time with Basavaredi in the US and got rid of him, and now he's with Hurkacz, and Hurkacz looked pretty good. He lost to Vachereau in 3 sets in Monte Carlo, but he played him pretty tight, and obviously Vachereau went all the way to the semi-final, and I think Hurkacz is suited way more to the conditions in Madrid than he is in Monte Carlo. So I kind of like Hurkacz's chances here. He's got a qualifier, Jaime Faria in the Portuguese in the first round, and then he bumps straight into Musetti, but it's probably a good time to get Musetti in Musetti's first game. I was massively disappointed last week with Musetti, just the opportunity he had in Barcelona, how passive and defensive he was, camping out 10 feet behind the baseline against Fils in that, what was it, a semi-final? So I was disappointed with him there, a quarter-final actually. I was disappointed with him there, but I'm going to try to take him on here with Hubert Hurkacz, big serve, massively aggressive player, and hope that the conditions are ripe for him here. He has done it on clay. He has a title in Estoril in 2024. He made the Geneva final last year, where I think he lost to Novak Djokovic. He made the Rome quarterfinal in each of the last 2 years, and he made the Madrid quarterfinal previously as well. So he has clay pedigree. You don't necessarily think of him as a clay quarter, but I think coming back in now, new lease of life with the new coach, happy to take a go here at 14-1, so plus 1400 for Hubert Hurkacz in quarter 2 is going to be the first bet. And then at the top of it, I'm kind of between, like, Fils is here, Shelton is here, and Vachereau is here. And the one I'm going to go with is Shelton at plus 400. I'd actually probably prefer to take him in and make the final market, but for some reason none of the books are up with that in the men's. I'm not sure why, but I'm going to take him at plus 400. One, I want to oppose Fils. Two, his first couple of matches, should be okay. He only has to play one of Fils or Vachereau to make the quarter final if he were to get that far. And I think Fils, like I said, is there for the taking, and I wouldn't at all be surprised if Vachereau was the one to do it. I did consider Vachereau here as well, but he's plus 1600, and he has to come through Fils, and then he has to come through Shelton probably, and then he has to come through Musetti or Hurkacz or whoever down in the bottom of the section. So I don't think the price is worth taking, so I'm going to pass on him. But I am going to take Hurkacz at plus 1400, and I'm going to take Ben Shelton at plus 400 in quarter 2. And then quarter 3, really easy and keep it simple. Casper Ruud plus 700, 7-1 is an auto click. Pretty easy bet there for me. Defending champion here. The only concern is his calf is strapped up, and he missed tournaments with his calf. He missed Monte Carlo with his calf, but that was 2 weeks ago. He looked good in what I've seen from practice. He's here since last Thursday. Obviously highly motivated to defend his points, and he's in a section with Davidovich Fokina and Bublik to get to a quarter final against Cerundolo or Felix Auger-Aliassime, and to me he's favoured over every single player in this section. So easy bet there for me in quarter 3 is Casper Ruud. And then I don't have a bet in quarter 4. I was tempted by Medvedev, but there's better value actually in just taking his outright price each way, so I'm going to do that. And then Jakub Mensik I was looking at as well, but I'm turned off. I saw today an entry list came out for Valencia Challenger, and Jakub Mensik is the first name on the list, and I'm honestly immediately just put off by that. It's the week before Rome, I believe, and he's coming back from he had a foot infection where he missed 2 weeks. Just entering a challenger kind of gives me the indication that he's not necessarily confident in his ability to put together a deep run here or Rome, and he's looking for matches prior to Roland Garros, which is all well and good and fine, but it's certainly putting me off him a little bit here. If I hadn't seen that and I didn't see he was entered into the Valencia Challenger, I probably would be more keen on him, but I'm going to pass on him purely on the basis of being entered in that challenger, and we'll see if that's a mistake or not. Overall, on the outright, Sinner is the one I just think he's an easy oppose. He's a massive oppose for me. He's minus 200, minus 225 in places. It's way too short, coming in off a title in Monte Carlo where he looked great, but he's never really done that much in Madrid, and he's coming into a tournament where the variance is just higher here naturally with the altitude and the faster conditions than a normal clay court. And the other thing here is if he has any sort of potential issue with a shoulder or anything at all body-wise, niggles or tweaks, he will be gone. The only thing he cares about is Roland Garros, and the second thing he cares about the most is Rome. He probably cares far less about Madrid than either of those two. So he's an easy one to oppose at the price. And again, I said Arthur Fils, another easy one to oppose at the price. So that automatically, when you're opposing two of the top 3 in the betting, you're moving on to where is the value. I don't think the value is Zverev. He's too short for me. He's plus 800, plus 850, that type of range. I would much rather take some other players at bigger prices. So here we go. I'm going to take Ben Shelton. You can get 30-1 plus 3,000 out there. That's the price at Bet Rivers here in the US. 365 have him at 25-1. It's also fine. Plenty of the books have him at plus 2,200. So I'm going to try get the plus 3,000 at Rivers. But if you wanted, the each way part, I think honestly the each way part is better off swerved here, given he's in Sinner's half. So you just play him on the nose and play him to win, and plus 3,000 if you can get it is out there. I like that. Casper Ruud, either plus 5,500 at FanDuel in the win only market, or if you prefer the each way, which I do because he's in the other half, the Sinner. I mentioned this yesterday in the pod, but I'm going to go with him at plus 5,000 in the each way. Hubert Hurkacz, 150 to 1 at Bet Rivers. He's 100 elsewhere. I gave you the case for Hurkacz for the quarter. He's 150s outright, which is lovely. So definitely worth a small bet. And again, some of these larger price points, the nice part of it is, you only have to have small stakes to have a decent payout, even with, your smaller bet. So it's not like the staking has to be massive here to make it interesting for the week. So far we've got Shelton plus 3,000, Ruud plus 5,500, Hurkacz plus 150. The next one is just purely based on price. It's Lode Musetti plus 7,000. I don't know why he's that big at FanDuel. He's 50 to 1 in most places, which I actually think is potentially value too. Even though he was disappointing in Barcelona last week, he's the kind of player who has just the talent levels to win any tournament on clay. Just needs to get a little bit more aggressive, and that could be a mindset thing as well. So I'm going to take both Hurkacz and Musetti there in that same little section. 70 to 1 for Musetti. And then the last one that I'm going to take is another each way with a half at 365, so a half to 1 and 2 to make the final, and that's Daniil Medvedev. He's like I said, I was going to play him in the quarter, but it's far better value to play him at plus 4,000 outright, so 40 to 1. You're getting 20 to 1 on him to make the final, which is much better than the 6 to 1 for the quarter, given he would be, not a massive dog in the semis. He would be a dog to Zverev, he'd be favourite over anyone else, so that makes more sense. And then I was looking at to make the final market with a view to having some bets there, and putting in the likes of Musetti or Ruud or Medvedev. And honestly, the market is just a joke. It's literally a combination of Sinner with everybody else in the field. So there's almost no other selections there. Look, that's where we are. I am kind of keen on Shelton. He had a title in Munich. He had a title in Dallas. He had a quarterfinal at the Aussie Open. Like I said, I think conditions here are really good for him. So let's see. Those are the bets in the men's. And then the women's one, honestly, a little bit more concise. Straight to the point with the outright is Arina Sabalenka, plus 200. You can get plus 225. Some of the books are down. I'm not sure why. I don't believe there's anything happening to, that would make them be down or warrant them being down. I think it's just probably a mistake. But some of the books are also still up. So plus 200 Sabalenka's out there right now with FanDuel. I believe plus 225 at DK and 365 when they're back up. I do have some other bets then in the women's. Let's get into the quarter markets for the women's. Here we go. Okay, quarter one is Sabalenka's quarter, and I've no interest of minus 225. I've no interest in anyone else in the quarter either. I'm not having a bet in that quarter, much like Sinner's quarter in the men's. I'm also not having a bet in quarter two in the women's. It's Swiatek, Andreeva, Svitolina, Jovic. The one I was looking at was Jovic at 10 to 1 plus 1,000, but I looked at the draw and I looked at just the probability of winning each match all the way through, and I actually don't think it's value, so I'm not going to back it. And I think the market looks largely correct. Swiatek is plus 120 favourite, Andreeva plus 240, but she may be tired, she may be showing some fatigue, and then Svitolina is way too short for me, so I am passing on that, no bet. And then we get to the bottom half, and my first bet here is Coco Gauff to win quarter three. She's the favourite for it, but I'm going to bet her. You can get plus 200 on Coco Gauff for quarter three, which is very nice, I think. Gauff is plus 200, Pegula plus 300, and Boko plus 375. And then, honestly, Marta Kostyuk way too short at 9 to 1. Tauson and Noskova, I like both of those girls. Both of them have upset potential for basically any girl on tour. Like, they can beat anyone on their day, but I think they're a good bit too short at 12 to 1 for the pair. And then I don't really see any outsiders there that are I guess two semi-interesting ones are Taylor Townsend and Yulia Putintseva at 150 to 1 each, but I'm not going to be backing that. I'm going to keep this one easy. Coco Gauff at plus 200 is a pretty easy click there for me. She has a couple of easy openers, then very likely to meet Linda Noskova in the fourth round, and then a quarter-final winner. She will play the winner of Pegula or Mboko. So the nice part of that is Pegula and Mboko have each other in their little section, and Gauff only has to play one of them. So even though it looks like a tough quarter on paper, she does only have to have one pretty tricky match in the quarter-final. So I really do like Gauff to win that quarter. And then quarter four is interesting. some of the books were struggling, I think, with pricing it because Amanda Anisimova pulled out, and some of the books had left certain players active. Rybakina is the favourite here, plus 100. I don't have an interest in it. Maddie Keys, plus 600, and Qinwen Zheng, plus 1400. One player I was hoping to get a bigger price on was Karolina Pliskova. She's 20 to 1. I can see 22 to 1 in places, but I was hoping for a bigger price there, and I'm not going to bet it. I think if there was a gun to head to have a bet in this section, it'd be Qinwen Zheng, just with the I don't know, the high ceiling that she's got and the chances that Rybakina is tired from Stuttgart, which is a real chance, by the way. And as we move on to this next and final segment, there's 3 selections for the make the final market in the women's, and they're all, or most of them, yeah, basically all of them, taking a position that Rybakina can be chinned in the bottom half here, and I certainly think she can. Look, I think the conditions suit Rybakina in Madrid. Altitude, huge serve, she's on fire, she just won Stuttgart. But she's played a long swing in the US in the Sunshine Double. She made finals and semi-finals there and looked really good and pushed Sabalenka really hard in both. She had a long week last week and a tough fight against Leila Fernandez. Only barely came through that one in the third set tiebreak. So while she is the class of the bottom section here, I prefer some of the other players. So we're going to start and we're going to build on the Coco Gauff price, which was plus 2 to 1 to win quarter 3, and we're now going to take Coco Gauff at plus 500 to reach the final market. I really like that. There are prices of 10 to 1 and 11 to 1 on Gauff outright, so you're getting 5 to 1 on her to reach the final, which implies, depending on where you are and whatever, like 220, 230 region to win the final, and she's nowhere near that against Sabalenka, assuming it is Sabalenka, or even Swiatek, where she'd be a dog probably. So much better value in the reach the final market with Gauff, so I'm very happy with plus 500 there. The other 2 that I'm going to take here, Yelena Ostapenko is a very easy click at, she was 125 to 1. Is she still 125 to 1? She might be even bigger. 125 to 1 still on Yelena Ostapenko, so I do like that a lot. She's 80 to 1 with some books to actually win the tournament, and we're getting her at 125 to 1 to reach the final. So she's in the Rybakina section, but if Rybakina were to be beaten early, it's wide open. And, Ostapenko's that kind of player that you like, has a high ceiling, can hit winners off both sides, can beat anybody on her day. So, plays right into the variance, the increased variance that you see in Madrid at the altitude. And then the last one is Qinwen Zheng, and slightly annoyingly it's just been cut from plus 6600, which I had it written down at, to plus 5000. So she's been shortened from 66 to 1 into 50 to 1 to make the final. But I still think the 50 to 1 Qinwen Zheng to make the final is a better bet than the 14 to 1 quarter market. And I do like, again, the variance. If she comes in and is serving well, I think it makes sense to be on her. She has a huge ceiling. She won the Paris Olympics from memory. Yes, she did. She won the Paris Olympics in Roland Garros, and that's obviously clay. She's had super success on clay. It's probably her best surface. Vicious forehand spin, a vicious serve when she's serving well. She has been dealing with an elbow injury, which is why she missed some tournaments lately, but you're betting here on kind of taking a chance at a big price. So again, doesn't have to be big stakes. My favorite bets of the women's are Sabalenka outright at 2 to 1 or slightly bigger if you can get it, and then Coco Gauff to win the quarter at 2 to 1 and Coco Gauff to make the final at 5 to 1. I really like the 3 of those. And in the men's, just to go back over it for a second, less probably bets that I love. There are more a couple of outsiders. I do like the Casper Ruud one. I do like all of the to make the final and the outright and some of the each way stuff. Probably if I had to say my favorite bet in the men's, it's either the Ruud to win the quarter at 7 to 1 or it's Hurkacz at 150. I think that's going to be real fun just to ride that one for small stakes. So some lovely bets overall. We'll keep an eye on them throughout the week. We'll probably I don't know if I'll do an episode next weekend. It's kind of midway through the tournament, but certainly will be loads of shorts and reels on Instagram and on YouTube. So please do follow, please like, please subscribe, please share with your friends. Yeah, it's fun to do it, but it's more fun when there's people following along and hopefully winning some money along the way. But also just if you enjoy tennis content and listening to chat about tennis, feel free to leave comments or any things you want to see on the pod or hate seeing or whatever. But yeah, hopefully some nice picks there. I'm pretty happy with some of them, and particularly on the women's side. So thanks a lot for joining, and chat during the week.